Welcome to my Wedges of 2025 video. We will be diving into the deep end of wedges by examining every single wedgie encounter I encountered this season. In terms of extreme, 2025 was the extremist activity-wise. All jokes aside, it was actually a pretty active season. So buckle up, audience, it's about to get super windy. Wedge number A, the cold core wedges. The date is March 19th, and Mother Nature is spinning up a potent environment for wedges. East Central Illinois was in the crosshairs of the exit region of a strong mid-level jet streak, enhancing the severe weather threat. So the SPC decided to give a hatched 10% area for tornadoes that evening. Little did I know the madness that was about to ensue later on. I sampled the warm sector of the system near Arcola, Illinois, and my blood was pumping. Being the first chase of the season, my eyes got caught on a developing mega supercell to my south, with its towery goodness stretching to the heavens. I could tell it was gonna do it. As it moved to my north, I saw it, an incredibly wide rainbow wedge again. Oh my god. Even bigger than the July 9th rainbow wedge. So bussin' it's disgusting. As the rainbow wedge beautified the Illinois countryside, another round was shaping up to the southwest. I moved into position and gawked at the storm for a bit, only to be amazed at the incredibly violent cold core wedge that planted to my east. These wedges take on a ghostly appearance due to their high ice content, spooking the atmosphere with their spookiness. The next wedges of my wedge-filled season brings us back to Illinois, where I capture an even rarer wedge type, the double wedge. Our adventure begins where it normally starts, right at the beginning. Yet another 10% hatched tornado risk for southeastern Illinois and southern Indiana was getting me all titillated, so I blasted into Illinois. As the line of storms approached from the west, I noticed the more cellular storms beginning to form ahead of the main line, so I blasted towards it. I picked off each storm as I went south, which is a real treat for a storm chaser, as it makes it easy to see multiple storms with ease. But only when I reached Marshall, Illinois, was I greeted by what I was searching for: more wedges. You can see in the time lapse that I made the insane motion under the updraft to the left of the shot. That is wedge number 74 of the season. But what makes this even crazier is the 14-mile wide laminar noodle wedge behind it shortly after, which bumps our wedge count all the way up to 144. These kinds of wedges are so strong, they warp the fabric of reality, making them appear smaller than they actually are. Absolutely bonkers. Surprise, there was another wedge I completely forgot about while typing this script. The wedge terrorized the very town I call home, almost hitting where I work. It tickled some incredibly large trees on the south side of town. You can see the absolute unit of a tree here as I heroically move it off the road. Incredibly devastating and definitive. Are you guys ready for the next wedge of our story? Too bad. Let's head to Washington, Indiana, where it started. A beefy MCS was headed my way from southern Illinois, threatening me with a good time. The tornado risk was not very high, but I was not deterred. As I sat in wait, looking at it, storms began to fire all around me as the MCS grew closer. The sky turned a super pretty turquoise, blue-green, aqua teal, light cyan, sky celadon verdigris color, which told me in my ears, with its stormy voice, that it was approaching wedge 30 o'clock time-wise if you read it on a clock. What happened next really blew me away. It was a mean blue-green spinning wedge machine, and it looked angry. It sat there on the horizon and danced for me. It was so beautiful. Notice how the scud gently twists around itself here. This wedge was likely only a few miles wide, but a wedge nonetheless. Our next wedge brings us to the flats of Elnora, Indiana, where Mother Nature really threw a surprise curveball. It began with a slight risk to my south, and a warm front lifting north into the area. This provided enough lift to set off a few supercells that produced some of the best structure that I have ever seen as a storm chaser. I began driving south on I-69, noticing some breaks in the clouds. The further I drove, the more likely a wedge began to appear imminent shortly in the future. I blasted south on 231 to intercept the strengthening wedge machine. I found a field to observe it from, and I was not disappointed. This mini supercell was unbelievably photogenic. The entire updraft was visible in all of its spinning glory. Notice the wall cloud churning around under the updraft. This kind of storm isn't something you usually see in Indiana. I decided to get right up under its skirt and started driving right towards it. I found another spot to look at it and watched the scuddy bits begin to form into the dreaded definitely wedge. These wedges only form under the most definitive of structure, making this wedge the most definitive of them all. Seeing these kinds of wedges increases clout and validity tenfold, making you the coolest and most knowledgeable chaser ever. The next round of wedges that I captured takes us to western Indiana. Yet another big bad low pressure system was stirring up the atmosphere with its shortwave spatula. Any storm that formed in the vicinity of the low had a good chance of spinning. I believe, after reviewing footage and my mind, that I saw at least 3 different wedges during this outbreak. The first wedge was when I was in Illinois blasting north towards the first round of storms. You can see the first probably wedge here as I was heading north on Highway 150 in eastern Illinois. Let's verify velocity to further prove my wedgy magnetic powers. Yup, wedge. If you look closely in the video, it also seems like there is a second 894 mile wide wedge just behind it as well. Guess what? I was right. Check out this survey done by the National Weather Service, confirming my obviously superior wedge analysis skills. The day got only wedgier as I intercepted a completely rain-wrapped wedge outside of Bismarck, Indiana. You can see the obvious tornado on the ground ahead of me here, and the velocity data to back it up. Notice how I enter what's known as the bear's cage as the sky gets really dark. The day was far from over though. I noticed yet another wedge headed towards the town of Petersburg, Indiana, so I raced down to meet it head on. I was fearing for my life, not knowing if I was going to make it south in time before I got spanked hard. I made it though, but only barely. I started following the wedge east along 136, only to capture it churning over a field. See the super fast rotation in the cloud base. With wedges like this, you don't need a debris cloud visible on the ground to verify it as a tornado. What? Another wedge? you've got to be a silly goose. Nope. This wedge was looking all stringy thingy on the hills near Crawfordsville. It soon vanished, as it was incredibly brief, but a wedge nonetheless. Okay guys, buckle up, because it's time for the next wedge. The Peppermint Patty Wedge. Why is it called the Peppermint Patty Wedge? Because it impacted York, Illinois. The day started like any other wedge day, warm and ready to wedge. Guess where I headed? If you guessed Ohio, you're wrong. It's back to Eastern Illinois. This day was on a whole nother level in terms of risk. The SPC gave us a moderate risk with a heightened chance for tornadoes. A cold front blasting in from the west began to spark some storms, giving our first storm of the day, and what a doozy it ended up being. I saw it at a distance just outside Olney, Illinois. Before attempting an intercept to my north, the storm produced a nasty hook echo, likely planting a super wedge, but I couldn't see it, so that's 12 more wedges in our wedge count. I chased the storm for as far as I could, being slowed down by farm equipment and rivers, thus ending my pursuit. Little did I know what the storm put down in Indiana, and I will forever regret missing it to this day. I will put a link down in the description of this video to the tornado that one of our teammates captured near Linton, Indiana. It was beautiful. Excellent job catching this, Josiah. Give this guy some love on YouTube. You're the GOAT. I abandoned that storm and put my target sight's crosshairs on the next storm to my west. I found another field and set up my tripod to capture the storm on a time-lapse. What I captured next will forever go down in my mind. I believe I captured a likely wedge in the middle of the time-lapse here, as the base of the storm tightens up into what looks like a highly concentrated area of rotation. Velocity also supports this theory, so we're calling it a wedge. That wedge faded only for it to spit out the craziest motion I have ever seen on a storm. The sun backlighting the updraft allowed me to see through the storm like an X-ray machine. It continued advancing on me, only to produce a shape-shifting, dry air skinny wedge. This wedge touched down just to my north, before blasting towards the town of York, Illinois. I was hot on its heels like athlete's foot on an incredibly hot summer day. You can see in the video here, sheets of metal being yeeted sky high all the way to the LCL. It was mind-blowing. The wedge continued churning across the state line, only to fizzle out after crossing into Indiana, thus ending its reign of rainy terror. Only minor damage was dealt to the town of York, and it left the people unharmed. After witnessing what may have been the most wedges in a season, this undoubtedly made me think about my wedge count afterwards. Seeing all the wedges of this season, plus the previous wedges of my chasing career, got me thinking, and coming up with this number. 2,542,354,687 wedges. So thanks again for watching my amazing Wedges of 2025 video, and I'll see you guys on the next storm. And remember, stay wedgy, my friends.